recorded on Thursday night. Kronos Group Podcast. I am Jerry Brazy. I have Steve and Matt Floyd here with me. As always, my co-hosts here on the podcast. And we will start with Matt, Steve. Steve, how was your week?
It's doing well. Wrapped up our last pool.
Our
organized pool in a league.
That's right. Our last league pool, which we have been at for many a year. If you want to tell the folks what we did there.
Yeah, that's where we went in there and we played competitive APA pool. Jerry played on Tuesday nights and Wednesday nights. I was on the Wednesday night team with him. But we played in there over in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. We'll give a shout out to Melissa in Wall Street. Played upstairs there, but we played there. I was there for about 5 years, Jerry. So you started a little before me. So you're probably 6 years. I mean, literally since you touched down here in Nashville, I've been playing over there. So we've been playing over there, and I've been on Jerry's team. Jerry, I was thinking about last night. I think we probably had one of the longest running teams besides maybe one or two people over 5 years, which is when I watch every new session, there's 3 sessions a year. I watched, and I was thinking that when I was walking out, how many of these teams, even just this last session we were in, our last one, how many of them changed and how consistent our team was. And I'll just say this, I don't care who hears it. We had the best team in there as far as, for lack of a better word, our culture.
Yeah, maybe not the best skilled team, but certainly the best culture team.
But people that wanted to be on there. People want to be on there. You say that, but this year we qualified for cities, which is like the end of the session thing in June that you qualify for. And if you win there, you go to Vegas on a trip that's partially funded. But we won in our first session at the beginning of the year, both 8 and 9 ball, which is not very easy to do. It'd been a while, but our team won both of them, which is very difficult playing all the teams in Middle Tennessee to do that. But I was thinking about the turnover, what Matt called churn. With the teams, and we had very little to none on our team for over the time. And when people came on, nobody wanted to leave. And I lend that to your leadership, as far as that and the ability for you and myself, we have conversations, you had the commiserating and the things that people would do, but when they got around us, it all died off because it didn't go anywhere. But it also, I think just even that presence of it helped people think a little bigger in life, how to handle things a little better, understand, in reality, as much as we love to play and be good at it, it's a game. It's where you and I'd go just to kind of unwind and let off from everything we were dealing with. So why take that serious? This is supposed to be an outlet. You hang out with some people, have a good time. We didn't do the drinking, they did, but have a good time with it. And I just reflecting, you were, the leader of the team there, but I think that resonated. They could get by themselves and do little things, but it was the whole group. There was just that ability for you to, have that calming presence, if you want to say that. And like, we got this problem. And how are we going to do this? And you're in the back of your mind, like, have you ever sat for months in front of a federal judge that wanted nothing more for you to go to jail? And you're worried about who shoots next or if the other team's doing this. And so I think because to you, that was just nothing. It did help that. So I appreciate being on your team. And I knew if you weren't there, I wasn't going to be there for what we're doing now. But it was a lot of fun. Had a lot of good times. I learned a lot. And I basically everything I've learned from you playing, and it was really good. It's a nice, relaxing thing. One day I'd love to have my own pool table and just be able to shoot around and keep working and honing that skill because you do have to think and plan and anticipate your next move. And if I do this, I need to make sure I'm in a position that 5 moves from now that I'm ready to, end the game if I can. But anyway, it was a great time, a lot of fun, good people there. We had a good time with, but everything has its time and its window. And, ours was done for what we're doing here and what we're expanding, growing on.
I love playing pool. I have always loved playing pool. And I joined those leagues before I moved out here. I've been playing pool about 8 years now. And I loved it. But the APA, the league that we played in, it lends itself to people not trying their hardest. And so when people do that, because it's handicapped. And so you have built into the structure, people's attempt, whether or not and how much they can influence their handicap. We had people who did everything they could not to win, so that when the end of the season came, they would have as low a handicap as they could to give themselves the greatest advantage that they could get. And it really I mean, in the early days, it wasn't that big a deal. As I got to be a better and better player, it really started to weigh on me in a big way, and I didn't like it. So much so that, yeah, playing in Smoky, I love that pool halls in Tennessee. As long as you are, I think it's less than 350,000 people in the zip code or in the town, you can smoke. I'm all for the business owner's ability to decide whether or not they want to have smoking inside of their bar, inside of their pool hall. I'm all for that. The same as it's my right and choice to not go and partake and spend my money there at that pool hall. So that got to be onerous for me after 4 or 5 years. Even though I support their right to do it, I have the same right to not have to go there. So that played a big part in it. But bigger, more so, is what I just saw. I didn't like being around the environment of people who are trying to lose and trying to cheat their way to the top. They're trying to gain an advantage not by getting better. And this is, I'm generalizing. There are a lot of great people. And the people who are the great people know who they are. I had a lot of really good friendly rivalries. I enjoyed playing so many of those people who would agree that this is what they who would agree that this was how they approached their game was the same way I did, always trying to win, always trying to get better. But the more you win, the higher your level would go. And so the higher your level would go, the more games you'd have to win in 8 ball, the more balls you would have to make in 9 ball. And it would get the higher you get, like anything in life, the more complex, the more difficult, the harder it is. And so I saw just so many people and so many teams do everything they can without getting too far out into the weeds and how the APA scores and all the rest of it. Literally, people saying time and time and time and time again that their coach told them, the captain told them to lose the game because we can't have you going from a 3 to a 4 because the number doesn't work and we can't keep our 7 or our 8 on the team or we can't play them as much. So you need to dog it. And that happened all the time. And I put up with it for years and years and years. It's not up to me to tell people how to run their lives. They're free to do that. I'm free to not be around it if I don't want to. And so even having a conversation about throwing something like that, having a conversation about not trying to win everything because somehow that's going to make your life easier, goes against everything that I've ever been about, everything I've ever done. It's the backbone, it's the opposite of who I am and what I am and what I've done, both surviving where I come from and the way I live my life today. And if I can't beat somebody straight up, good on them for beating me, and I need to work harder at it. But at the same time, if somebody's so much better than me that I just blow the game off because by beating them means my skill level might go up, thereby making my life more difficult, to me, that is something everyone should run to. And unfortunately, the APA does not lend itself to that. There is an algorithm that controls it all, and the algorithm is complicated, but algorithm or not, people are obsessed with this part of the APA. There's other pool leagues. I haven't played in them. I can't talk about them too much relative to their scoring system and all the rest of that. But I just know that if I heard one more time that your skill level is going to go up because you beat somebody 2 skill levels higher than you, which should happen. That's the whole point of having it handicapped, is that it evens out the match so that if the better player doesn't play as well and the lower skill player plays to his level, he should beat the better player. That's part of the game. And if that happens more often and more often, then you get better and better. But I just saw too much of it. So for me, that is the main reason why I simply had enough, because too much throwing of games for something as stupid as a pool game on a
Mhm.
Tuesday night when we're supposed to be relaxing and having a good time. And like everything, people's broken idea of what success looks like in life is whether or not they're getting over on somebody by throwing a season's worth of games just so that they can gain a 1 or 2 game advantage in 8 ball or a 15 or 20 point advantage in 9 ball, is the opposite of the room that I want to be in. One more thing. Again, that's not everybody. That was many people, but by far not anybody. And I have a lot of friends there, and I play with a lot of those guys, and a lot of people think the same way I do because I've had this conversation with them. But if anybody's ever told somebody to throw a game because it might somehow impact their ability to win by them improving, yeah, that's loser material. And I just can't be around that anymore, at least not now. I'm not saying I won't go back and play it another time. Who knows what, I'll get through the summertime and see what's going on. But, I've said for years, you got to surround yourself with people that are like you and want to be like you. And I think, Steve, that was that are like you, that think like you do and have the same basic understanding, especially when it comes to something like this. And that's why our teams, I think, did so well, is because I never asked anybody to throw a game. In fact, all we did is try to win every single time. And if I ever caught wind that somebody was throwing a game, if anybody on my team ever caught wind of somebody on our team trying to throw a game, I think that for sure we would have had an issue. But in all my years, I can't remember that ever being a case. It was always win, and we'll figure out how to make sure everybody plays.
Yeah, we got accused of doing that just because, just like anything, I do it in sales. Some days you have sales that look like you couldn't not close somebody, and then, have a day or two like, did I forget how to even talk to a human being? It's just the ebb and flow. So we had it, and we were fortunate. It all came together at the end of the summer. We got there and we won both 8-ball and 9-ball at what they call tri-cups, which is a qualifier for cities, which is the one big time thing. I think it's in June. And it was just everything came together. Next match you could watch the match before I got there, had it. So, it does get tiring of being around that mentality,
Yeah.
just among many other things. And for us to do what we're doing and where we want to get to, we realize, there is that part of you that has to be around like-minded people to do that. That's what we're trying to create here. And then as a reflection, we're like, okay, if I look at my life, where am I allowing this to not be congruent with what I'm trying to create here? And that was one area. As much to your point exactly, love pool. It's fun. I love the competitiveness of it.
Yep.
I would rather get my butt thoroughly whipped by somebody that shot good and then be impressed watching them play good pool than to think I'm trying to do something. So somewhere down the road, throwing a game, so I could keep a ranking down. And it's just, and it really, if you just look at the lives a lot of them live, you can see why it creates the life they have. That mentality is pervasive into everything else they'll do. They think, no, I'll just do it here. It's part of the whole framework of how you see the world. How can I get by with as little as possible so I can set myself up to gain as much as I can get out of something, and it's such a short-term return. And what you do is you sacrifice that life you have, the character integrity of who you are as a human being, and it reflects on a lot of the poor self-esteem or the overinflated ego they tried to project, which, people like you and me, just because we've paid attention, we've looked at it ourselves, and I've had it in my life at times, and I'm like, oh, I see exactly what you're doing. You can see right through it. And so to your point exactly, Jerry, it just gets to like, okay, I've got to really look in areas of my life where I've got to level up higher if I'm going to be consistent with what I want to do.
Yeah. And this is where I'm going to say, I've said this many times, anybody that's listened to me before, this example in sports, that flipping out and being emotional, this is another part, lesser reason, but another part, flipping out in sports because you missed a shot, because you didn't win the game, because you played like garbage and couldn't hit it in, and this slamming of cues and throwing of chairs, yelling at the coach and screaming at each other, and hollering about the inequity of, I can't play this person because of this person, or this thing didn't go my way, or that ball got touched first, or all of the crazy meet the other parent at the pitching mound so y'all can fight in front of the 11-year-olds, which is the reason my 6'4", 240-pound son quit playing baseball at 11 years old. Because of that, it makes it almost impossible to want to go and do these things, because people act like children because they watch pro sports. I'll say this again. They watch pro sports going all the way back to the 70s when Bobby Knight was throwing chairs across the basketball floor while he was a coach at Indiana. And that is how we interpret how we are supposed to act when we are aggrieved, when we are safe into home plate, but the umpire calls us out. Our job is to stand up and start screaming this close to the umpire, telling him what an idiot he is, because that is what we see on television. And so we take that, not understanding that that works in a very, very tiny little sector of society. I talk about, the old motorcycle shows and car shows and building shows and cooking shows and restaurant shows where Gordon Ramsay is screaming at everybody, who in the world would work for this guy? Nobody. I've been in business for 1,000 years. I know 1 billion entrepreneurs. I've never seen anybody screaming and yelling at their employees like that. Certainly not one where I was around, because anyone who knows me would say, because Jerry's going to call me over to the side and say, hey, I understand you're working your little taco store here, right? Maybe you're doing a couple of $100,000 a year, but let me give you some advice from somebody who's done $500 million in revenue and has had 10,000 employees. That little hissy fit you just threw does you no good for your employees and does you no good for your customers. Therefore, it does no good for you or your business, because that's not the way that the world works. That's not the way entrepreneurship works. That's not the way success works. That's not the way you accept failure. That's not the way you react to failure, I should say. That's not how the world works. The world of success works calm, cool, controlled, perspective, understanding your environment, realizing that the more excited you get, the less your ability to make decisions in that heated moment, the more offended you get by something that somebody did, either that you controlled or you didn't, only results in that problem getting worse, not better. You don't learn your lessons because you're constantly blaming somebody else. There's no value in it. So the APA is a microcosm playing in these leagues when you see grown human beings react to a missed ball in a pocket like their mother just got knifed in the back walking down the street. And you go, guys, it's Tuesday at night. We're not being paid. We drove here in our own cars and we're paying to do this. But if you put in that same sort of that same sort of if you took that and moved that to discipline in your own life, in your job during the day. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about sports, is we all get to be experts, because there's no definitive outcome for who's the best NBA player, who's the best Major League Baseball player, who's the best one ever, who's the best one today, right? We can all argue about it. That's why we're drawn to it. And then when we see that small subset of industry that allows that sort of childlike behavior to adverse conditions, we think that's what we need to go do. Now, we can't imagine why we're mired in our job working at Taco Bell for the last 24 years and we can't get ahead. Maybe it's because you worked at every other fast food outlet and they fired your ass too, because you can't control the way that you think and talk and act, because you're working off of your emotions rather than using your brain. And that's the part that ruins it for so many people, is when you see these large children act exactly like what they are relative to something happening on a table at a pool hall on the second floor in downtown Murfreesboro, Tennessee on any given night. It will just suck the life out of you if your intention is to be successful at whatever it is that you're doing: life, family, home, health, fitness, whatever part of that is. There is no value in the emotional outbursts that we see in sports. And so when people bring that over, and Steve knows exactly what we do, everyone hearing this diatribe is going to know exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm telling you, there is no success in that whatsoever. In fact, the opposite is true, because everyone that behaves like that is cheating their asses off, trying to gain an advantage so they can beat somebody better than them, which has zero value in the world also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jerry, I was going to say, especially playing basketball and playing sports growing up, my brother Aaron, he is someone who tries to find that emotion and unlock it within an opponent, because he would get so far under their skin, and as soon as they erupted on the court, he knew he's already won, because he knew they weren't focused on the team, on winning. They were focused on themselves, because when they're hollering, making a scene, all eyes are on them. So now they're going to miss the crucial things in the game that takes the team to win, like that pass or that certain play where that person has to dish it out to this area. Now our opponent, that guy, is just thinking about himself. because he's like, oh, I'm not getting the calls, or I'm not getting down the floor because so-and-so is fouling me the whole time and they're not calling anything. Aaron was so good at literally saying stuff on the court to these players. And the ones that we were the most scared of were the ones that you could not break. And you couldn't tell if they just would hit a game-winning shot or shot a free throw. There was no difference. And those are the ones that we were like, oh shit, we got to watch them, because I know throughout this entire game, no matter what we say, no matter what the ref calls, whatever the coach complains about and yells out at the athletes, it's not going to change that person's rhythm at all. And those ones are the ones that are like that next level in business, that are even keel in their highest points and in their lowest points. And when they see someone like that break, it shows that, yeah, they're not ready. They're not ready to take it to that next level.
And this is why, like at the gym, this is why the gym is so important, because I go to the gym, and Matt, you've gone to the gym with me, and I everything that I'm frustrated about, everything that I'm pissed about, everything that I want to crush, all the things that I've been going through or I've ever gone through, anything that's bothering me, anything that's in my head, I take it out on those weights. I take it out on the other night, part of me getting on and doing a 10-minute mile, which seemed impossible to me 3 days before, was because the last few days had been pounding on me. So I had to go get a win. So I'm like, I know where I'm going to go get a win. I'm going to go run a 10-minute mile, which for me is, Jesus, a $6 million man for anybody my age to get that reference. I mean, it was running quick. And so I go in there and I take it out on the weights. I take it out on my workouts, that 25 minutes in the sauna. And I'm like, you know what? I need a win today. I'm going to go 30, 35 minutes and just bake in there and crawl out and feel like I'm about to die and the time stops. But I need the win. And I know when I get on the other side, whatever thing was bothering me, I'm going to be better about. I'm going to feel better about. I'm going to have a win under my belt, or a loss, but I tried harder. Maybe took it up 5 pounds for something that I hadn't done before. So I think that the physical fitness part of it, whether you're running or you're lifting or you're doing the sauna, whatever it is a critical part of keeping your head on your shoulders in those environments where you feel like you want to explode. Because I'm calm all of the time, but I'm not when I lift. I'm not, if I'm doing some kind of run and I'm trying to make a good time. I mean, I ran my last my last 4 miles were all 40 minutes and 15 seconds. So I'm literally 10, or excuse me, I wish that was the case. 42 minutes. So I'm edging ever closer. My last 3 ago was 44 minutes. So that's me. I'm not getting in quicker shape in the matter of days. I'm realizing that I'm kind of been pussing on it, and I need to get angry about it, and I need to push myself harder. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to take it out on myself, and that's a critical part to keeping your health up. Is you can work out a lot of those frustrations that life throws at you by taking it out on the weights or the run or the sauna or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's a controlled chaos is what I like to call it, where it's like the chaos in your own head. It's controlled and it's disciplined, but you're leveraging it and hedging it, like you're saying, compared to just outburst, which shows, okay, this person literally is very immature, doesn't have the experience, cracks under pressure. The people that use that pressure and then use it like a sniper rifle, dude, watch out for those people, because those are the ones that can reset themselves for a whole new path in life.
Yeah, it's funny. It reminds me of, there's this video keeps coming up on my social media, and they're on a subway, and there's this little dude, maybe your height, Matt, maybe not even. I mean, he's not the guy. There's a dude from, like, I don't know where he's from. He's Middle Easterner, and he's probably 6 foot tall. So the other dude's maybe, I don't know, 5'9". He's just a normal sized human being, right? And the dude's yelling at him. And on the subway, just letting him have it. And there's people everywhere, and somebody's recording it from this direction. And this young buck, he's just sitting there taking. And the guy's older, he's probably in his 40s, and he's in shape, the bigger, taller guy, and he's screaming in an accent, and, like you see on the subway. And he got too close to homeboy. And homeboy never moved. He just kept his eyes on him and he kept his hands up the whole time. He's just looking up at this dude. And he never blinks until the guy touches him. And the dude moved so quick and knocked him out. And in one hit, he knocked him out because he was ready. And the guy just crumples. And then the doors open and dude slowly walked off. I don't know if his heart was racing or not, but I'm like, that's how you need to be. That's how you run your life. You want to give yourself the best chance to find success at whatever it is that you're trying to find it in. That's how you act. Whoever that dude is, he's going to go somewhere. Somebody follow that dude, because I'm telling you, you're going to learn lessons. And clearly he was a trained fighter. And that's, again, back to my health and fitness side of things. But let's change it up a little bit. I wanted to talk about
just one thing, Jerry. I'm going to interject.
Yeah.
So I have to ask, is this what you hear in your head when you're doing those 10-minute miles?
Do you get that, Matt?
I do not.
You don't get that reference.
I hear that. I heard it, so I had to look it up, Jerry. That's for our generation, the $6 million man when he's using his bionics.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. It's a bionic $6 million man. That's the noise, Matt. Whenever he would lift a boulder or whatever, that's the noise that it would make. Or if he started out running, that's the
sound effect
noise it would make.
I wonder what that valuation be today, because we hear $6 million. Like, I buy a house for that much. It's a big deal about, like what's it, Optimus that they're building?
Yeah.
The robot. But anyway, go ahead. I had to throw that in there because when you did, I had to get it out of my mind so I can concentrate.
Yeah, no, that's because that is exactly that's too good.
In the past.
So I thought this was interesting, both from kind of like a social perspective and also from a business perspective. But Washington State, well, I'm sure Oregon's not very far behind. Washington State has been pushing a more aggressive tax policy. Again, far be it for them to cut expenses as they have grown exponentially year over year, while nothing new ever happens. So they're just spending money for the sake of spending money, hiring people for the sake of hiring people. But they essentially put in a 10% tax targeting higher earners. So it starts at like 7% on anything over $250 and goes to 10% on anything over $1 million. So I start thinking about that, and I was like, what's that going to do to their sports teams? How do their sports teams going to react to that taking place and that happening? Because that means that, I don't know what the average NFL income is, but if I were to guess, it's going to be, multiples of millions a year. And on the high end, the quarterbacks and guys like that, they're making millions, tens of millions of dollars a year. You're talking about now, immediately, starting right now, every single contract that a player in Seattle signed last year before, 2 years ago, now has a 10% tax on it. So if I don't know what the quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks is making, but they just won the Super Bowl, so I'm assuming it's not a tiny amount. Let's say $20 million. Well, homeboy just got hit with $2 million tax right off the top. Forget about all of his other taxes. He now has a brand new $10 or $2 million tax. And so when you add all of that up across all sports, and they're looking to get an NBA team, I'm always surprised when these guys go play, these free agents go play in places like California or New York, or play in, Massachusetts, any of these states, Oregon, when they have a choice to go play. Well, Oregon's not true because Oregon, not yet, but they still have a 9% tax. But when they can go play in, Tennessee, if it's the NFL, or any of the southern states for the most part, certainly in Texas and in Florida, because you have no taxes.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I never crunched the numbers on it, but I saw other people that did. And Sam Darnold's the quarterback for the Seahawks. And they were literally talking about that it cost him money to play in the Super Bowl, because when they go to the state, they got to pay while they're there. The money they earn playing that game, they have to play while they're there. So to your point, I see these guys get, traded. They get traded to the 49ers or the Chargers or the Rams. And I'm thinking there's a certain amount of money they just automatically lost, especially to your point, if they came from Texas, Tennessee, or Florida, where there's NFL, NBA teams, about the money. And I wonder if they adjust the contracts or anything like that, or realize I just lost all that money being here, because the players I never knew it was set up like that, but they get charged for it if they're playing there. And that's why they like to be there as little as possible. They'll literally come in on Saturday night, maybe Saturday afternoon to play a Sunday game and then leave Sunday night because it somehow it counts for the amount of time they're in that state playing that they have to pay taxes while they're there on that. And there was a big thing about Darnold. I think, they get like $175,000 for winning the Super Bowl, but it cost him $186,000 to be there to play the game with taxes. So he really lost money to win the Super Bowl. Now he's got his rest of his contract there. He's not hurting, but it is something, to your point exactly, that those players will lose money. And once you get traded there or get drafted there, it's like there's a certain amount you build it into the contract. I mean, that's not the conversation here. It's back to the taxes that they're putting on that.
I was about to say, Jerry, do they get paid more in those states? Because I know for at least like normal jobs, say that like when I was in Oregon, the median income for like working at a corporate level job, mid level, was like low six figures, whereas that same job, if you were in Oklahoma, was going to actually pay that salary of like $84,000 or $88,000. So is there like any boost on a contract when they go to states like Washington to be able to pay that extra tax, knowing that it's 10%, but they're getting paid a little bit more than what they would at some other place?
Yeah, for sure. I forget the name of the NBA player who just signed a contract. I just don't remember I was trying to look it up real quick. I don't remember the instance, but he refused to go to California. He wasn't going to go play in California because it's not just taking less money. Let's say California is willing to give you an extra $2 million a year to help offset their insane 13.3% tax that the state of California has. Forget about the local tax that you're going to have to pay in whatever county you live in. Forget about whatever city tax you're probably going to have to pay, whatever city that you live in. Forget about all the myriad of other taxes that most of these blue high tax states have. But the cost of everything is more expensive. So maybe you get the $2 million to help offset the taxes and the expenses and the $6 gas and all of that to bring it down to our level. But you also have to factor in how exponentially more expensive the houses are, the real estate are to live, how much more it is for cars. Now, when you're that rich, the price of gas or insurance or any of those things doesn't really matter, but it does as the cost of things goes up. And so if you could live in Miami or Texas, Tennessee, or any of these southern states and not have to go into Seattle, why anyone would want to go to Seattle over living in the South is beyond me anyway. Want to live in Florida is beyond me. Want to live in Texas is beyond me. All of that seems crazy to me anyway, having lived in both places, in particular because of the tax structure. But I don't know how it works that NFL teams can pay the surcharge that they have to pay. I don't know why anyone would go to there. I just have to believe that they're having to overspend that much money just to be competitive. I mean, look at the Dodgers, right? What's Ohtani make? $40 million a year, whatever it is. And again, he's paying 13.5%, 13.3% on that money in order to do that. So maybe the value is there when you just start throwing extras of millions over what anybody else will do. I'm going to assume so, but and again, on the low side, then sometimes dudes just want to play in the NBA and they'll play anywhere. So you're going to get that without a doubt. And maybe you can't get 10 million in Miami, but you can get maybe you can't get 6 million in Sacramento, but you can get 8 million in, I said that backwards. Y'all know what I'm saying. I'm trying to say maybe it's only 8 million in Miami, but you can get 10 million in Sacramento, and you look at it and go, okay, I'm up 350 grand. Okay. Then that makes sense too.
Yeah, I actually have an answer because I looked it up because I was curious about that. And I think Ohtani actually structured his to try to avoid that. He's backloaded a lot of his contract from maybe when he's done. I'll have to look more into that to see if he did, thinking some smart people may be working for him. But it says here, professional athletes generally do not receive higher gross salaries specifically to offset high state income taxes. Instead, players in high tax states experience lower, like California, New York, experience lower net income, while those in no income tax states, Florida, Texas, it says Washington here, but obviously that's not updated, keep more of their earnings. High tax states like California can take up to 13.3% income taxes. They pay a jock tax, where each athletes play in each state they play in based on the duty days, meaning those in low income tax states pay taxes when playing in the high income tax state. They pay taxes while they're there, and so what they do, they reduce the time they're there. And some players choose to play in other states without income tax to maximize their income. Their example was Tyreek Hill signing with the Dolphins instead of the Jets in New York or New Jersey to offset that. So some of them do strategize that, but evidently they don't get that that offset to offset the higher taxes. You're just going to get less money.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's really an interesting, it's an interesting scenario. And I don't understand it well enough to think about. I mean, people want to play in the league. I got to believe that's what pushes them. But you think about the kind of taxes that Brady paid playing in Massachusetts, and then dude goes down and plays in Tampa Bay, and all of a sudden, boom, overnight you're making, I don't know, Massachusetts probably 8%. You're making 8% more for doing nothing, right? Other than 8%. Sure, you got income tax you got to pay and things like those, but that's a consumption tax. That's not on all of the money you spend. That's just on or all of the money that you make. It's just on the money that you spend. So I got to think that some of these states are going to put themselves at a significant disadvantage. I mean, we already see, think about this. At the end of the year, Jeff Bezos moved out of Seattle, the owner of Amazon, and he moved to Miami. What's his name? Philip Schultz, Howard Schultz, who started Starbucks. He moved out on the last day of last year and moved to Miami. I mean, these guys, the rich guys, they think that California, who has threatened this tax and putting it in on billionaires, have lost somewhere in the order of tens of billions. 30 or 40 billion is the last number I saw that they've lost in taxes because Sergey Brin, who started Google, moved to Miami. I mean, these guys just pick up and out the door they go because they're the rich ones and they can take their money with it. And here's the thing people have to understand about taxes is they start at the rich. That's how they get it passed, because everybody hates the rich. And so they use your jealousy about the rich against you, but they're suckering you. This goes on throughout the last 75 years of American history. This is how it works. The evil are rich. The rich are evil. They need to pay their fair share. If they don't pay their fair share. So they're getting over on you, the little guy. And so we need to tax those guys like these 10% surplus taxes for being a millionaire or being a billionaire. The problem with doing that is the millionaires and the billionaires, they can pick up and leave, and they leave you alone, or they leave you there, Joe middle class, by yourself. It's not the poor that pay these bills when the rich guys leave. It's the middle class. And so they put the law into place. They expect to raise X number of dollars. They spend all of those X number of dollars, except the X number of dollars never shows up because the rich guys move out smartly. And so then they have the law in place. They don't have to create a new law. They just got to change the law that they have. So they don't have to go out and make a big deal out of it. And they simply go in, and now instead of it being $1 billion or $1 million, it's now going to be $250,000. Oh, that's not going to raise anywhere near what the $1 billion tax was or the $1 million tax was. So really, we need to bring that down to $100,000, because 6 figures sounds like a lot. And all of a sudden, the middle class that has been getting squeezed all of the time and always lose throughout history, the middle class always loses. They lose again, and they are the people who created their own destruction because they vote this stuff in to get even with the rich guy and make the rich guy pay their fair share. Meanwhile, they never pay attention to the fact that there's no new roads, right? That there's still potholes, that the infrastructure is crumbling around them, that there are trains to nowhere that never get built, that money gets pissed away left and right. In 2019, if we just spent federally what we spent in 2019, we would have close to a balanced budget. But thanks to COVID, we did all of this spending, but it never went back. So the government continues to spend that money. Oregon, where I was born and lived for 50 years, drove on the same roads that were still crappy. Nothing new ever happened, but their budget doubled from 2008 to 2020, I should say. So in 12 years, the budget doubled. I lived in the state. I go back to the state all the time. There's nothing new. There's nothing there. There's nothing to show for it. In fact, everything is worse off. It's an uglier city. The crime is worse. The graffiti is worse, right? The cost of living continues to go through the roof. You can't build anything. The regulations are higher. The licensing's crazy. Every part of it, there's no cops. Nobody does anything. They prey on the people who can pay, and all of the ones who can't pay get away with knifing girls on subways and all the rest of the crime and the nightmare and the people defecating in the streets and the things that we see. But they take more money and nothing ever happens. So we are the cause of our own demise, we being the people that live in these cities and live in these states that vote this stuff through. The South seems to be immune to that largely at the state level, certainly not at the city level. You only have to go to Memphis to figure that out real quick.
Yeah, you made that mention about Starbucks, and it got me thinking. They're opening a headquarters here, not the global one, but here in Nashville, they're opening up a new one. They expect to have about 2,000 employees there. A new corporate headquarters is opening in Nashville for Starbucks. So it makes you wonder about the shift. It doesn't mean they're going to move to global, but once you get in a state like this, you could shift a lot of the financial part of it to say, hey, we're based here now, to take advantage of that and maybe to escape some of these tax changes that are happening in Washington. So they're all losing it. And to your point earlier, the mayor of New York, when he got in, a lot of middle-class people thought, yeah, stick it to him until you realize, hey, we can leave. And then he's already started. I mean, not even 6 months into his term, 4 months into his term, he's already talking about, hey, we're going to have to raise the taxes on everybody to pay for all this stuff. And now they're all getting mad. But to your point, you voted this in. You thought somehow let's stick it to the rich, thinking that they're going to have to stay there and take it just because of that, without ever looking at the spending you're doing. Washington's talks about theirs. I was looking at some stuff on that, and they figured that it roughly increased about $4 billion in taxes, but it said most of it would be devoted to the state's general budget to pay for government agencies and services. That's where most of it's going to go to. And it says that maybe 5% would be earmarked for education, childcare, and some free lunch, but there is not legally in the bill. So they can say the verbiage without really being tied to it, just to make it look a little better. So they'll never look at everything they're spending on it. And then New York's a perfect example of them getting, screwed over. The very people that put it in thinking they're going to, do this. Yeah, we'll make the rich pay what they think their fair share is, which, Jerry, you're more familiar with how much the wealthy pay in taxes anyway. They make a buck, even if with all the deductions, everything, they still make a bulk of the tax bill in this nation already.
I think it's like the 1% pay 60 some odd percent of all taxes, something along those lines. 1%.
Yep. And when they leave and they still want these programs, then all of a sudden they're going to start looking down to the people that really can't afford to pay all these taxes, and they'll go after them. And all of a sudden that little pipe dream bubble gets burst real quick, but now you're stuck.
And where it comes down to is for entrepreneurs that want to do entrepreneurial things. You want to start a business, you want to find success, you're willing to work hard and sacrifice and risk and put the time in. These states steal it from you. They make it very, very difficult for you to do that thing that you want to do. They make it almost impossible. So whether it's just starting up a business, I mean, when I started a business 25 years ago, 30 years ago now, it was easy relative to anything that it is now. Even building a house 30 years ago was easy by far as it is compared to some of these blue states in particular. And so, there's no way the government, 53% of everybody in the country that receives money gets that money from the government in one way or another, either directly or they get it from the business that they work for has contracts with the government. And so when this happens, it's a very hard death spiral to stop. But for entrepreneurs, it makes it that much harder because the government, in particular these local governments, is always looking to pick your pocket. I should say in particular, the federal government's every bit as bad, but they're always looking to pick your pocket rather than cut, because cut doesn't get them elected. And so they never cut. They only spend, they only tax. And with the spending and taxing comes more regulations, comes more rules, comes more licensing, all, the exact opposite of what we should be doing. So if you are a free-minded person, people need to consider this, that if you want to find success, you better make sure that you are voting for the right people. I'm not saying the right people either are a red versus blue, because there are Republicans out there that are every bit as corrupt. In fact, the large majority of Democrats and Republicans are all the same. It's the uniparty as far as I'm concerned, but you can find places to live. You can find rules and regulations that you can live in. And certainly some of the places like down here in the South are a whole lot easier than what's going on in some of these other third world nightmares. So it impacts success across the board because it makes it all harder to do, which the big businesses love, because the more complicated it is, the harder it is for the little guy to get in. The more complicated it is to build a house, the happier the Fortune 500 house builders are, because they have resources that little guys like me don't have, that they can throw at these things. And so in that context, and when it's David versus Goliath, the more power you give to these crazy blue states, the harder it's going to be for you to find whatever it is that you want to do, either through entrepreneurship or even being an employee, because they're just going to continue to suck your paycheck. And as I did in my example for a billion and a millionaire, those dudes are going to move out, and y'all are going to be left right in the middle holding the bucket, because the politician's going to come after you because you already gave them the ability to do it by allowing that law to get passed, and they will simply change the law. The poor people don't pay. The poor continue to get rich, and the rich continue to get rich, and the middle class continues to get poorer because of those two things, and they keep getting it stolen from them. So I don't know, at some point there's got to be a stop put to it, but it really puts a crimp on success and being able to entrepreneurially find success, because your biggest enemy to doing that is your governments, local, state, and federal.
And is that more from a regulatory thing that they put on businesses to kind of hamstring them from getting things done, or just the tax rate they put on them? What's that look like?
Yeah, all of the above. But I mean, just think about it. If you're the state, are you going to worry about cleaning up the homeless encampments? Or are you going to worry about getting every dollar you can from the business across from the homeless encampment that can't afford to pay their taxes because nobody will come into their business because of the homeless encampment across the street? So if you are a business owner, which scenario do you think is going to play out relative to what the government is going to do? Obviously, the government. I'll tell you a story. I owned a city block right across from downtown Portland, very expensive part of town. I owned the entire block, and I wanted to have I was having a barbecue for my employees and my customers. And I set up a big tent in my parking lot and put out chairs and tables and the whole 9 yards, summer day. And for years leading up to that, on the back side of my building, I had homeless people. And I had a little area back there that I could park trucks, and I had a fence. And they kept setting my fence had wood. They kept setting it on fire. 3 times they set it on fire because they would burn their burn barrel. Of course, they're druggies and homeless. And the homeless are all druggies, right? There's no families. There's no women with little kids. It's all dudes that are addicted to drugs. I lived with them for 20 years. And so they'd set the building on fire. We'd call the fire department. Nobody would do anything. Nothing. Nobody would come out. Nobody would come put the burn barrel out, which was illegal. Nothing. I had my barbecue, set it up. My sister's working the barbecue. My mom's there helping set things up. I'm out there glad handing. 45 minutes into the process, the fire marshal shows up. Wants to know, female fire marshal wants to know, y'all can't do this. What are you doing here? I said, what you mean I can't do this? I said, this is for my employees and my customers. Well, you can't sell hamburgers without a license because, again, the barbecue's on fire. I said, I'm not doing any of those things. I'm giving it away. By the way, since you're here, why don't you walk around back? Because I guarantee you that burn barrel is going to be on fire because it burns 24 hours a day. And there's going to be a bunch of drug out homeless back there that are trying to set my building on fire. Oh, no. There was no money to be made here for this sucker fish that had showed up to try to choke some more money out of the legitimate law-abiding business owners. And she wanted nothing. The fire marshal wanted nothing to do with the fire burning in a barrel that kept setting something on fire inside of her city, right across from downtown in a heavily populated area business-wise. So that is the perfect encapsulation of government. And most people, because they don't have my experience or the experience of business owners, don't have any concept about what what government truly is about and what government is truly like. And that example is exactly what the large majority of governments are like, and 100% what the governments are like in every blue state.
Yeah, that's crazy that they, what they focus on there. You can tell it's almost like it's a prerogative to go after law-abiding citizens more so than the actual problems that the government should be there for, to
That's
take
right.
care of the things that's a problem, not the people that are doing the right thing, and not just to come in there and meddle. And the surprising thing, and I know you've had your own fair share of regulatory issues to deal with, but it's surprising how people still have this blind faith that the government is there to help me and protect me, and they have my best interest at heart, because most of them never have the experience that you've had. And we won't necessarily divulge, that could be a whole podcast in and of itself of what you've gone through with that, but they really think it's there for it. You've actually been behind the curtain, as in the Wizard of Oz, and seen what the wizard's really like and what the wizard's real intentions are. And we just still have this benevolent view of governments there because we give them money. So obviously they're going to do everything in our best interest. And when they can't provide that, then, we'll even give them a pass. I'm saying general public, like, well, they're just doing their best. They got a lot to work with, when really you get behind the scenes and you realize, well, they could take care of a lot of things out. They have a prerogative and an MO for what they're really trying to do, which in the most part just get reelected. So how do I keep the broad base of people that would elect me? How do I keep them happy enough to put me back in power? Now, we have our own senator here, Tim Burchett, out of East Tennessee, senator. He's a House representative in Congress, and he just calls it out. Most people get in there, all they're wanting to do is get reelected. So obviously they're going to just work with things that appeal to the masses, that are going to give them the most votes to do that, and not really be interested in fixing the problems. You talked about how you had the same crappy roads, and we had some major ice storm. Maybe it was a couple of years ago, and 840 south of us here got all chewed up, broken up from the ice. Water got under, because we get rain and then it freezes. So it's the perfect formula for breaking up any kind of pavement. But even yesterday, going to Poole, we had to take that way to get over to Murfreesboro from here in Nashville, Franklin area. And they're already out there paving. It's been about 6-7 weeks. And I complain because it wasn't done already. In my mind, I'm thinking that, but they're already out there paving it, getting it all taken care of. So there are states that operate differently as far as how they're really doing. Not saying Tennessee doesn't have its own waste. And, a lot of people in this state itself, to your point, either side of the party line, the uniparties, just their main focus is to get themselves reelected. People need to understand that the government's main priority is not you, even though you're giving them a big chunk of your income to do what you think they're doing, that would be in your best interest.
Yep, I agree. Yeah, and the flip side of that is as entrepreneurs or people chasing that kind of success, it's important to find people who know, kind of have a sense of what this is, and knowing that going on. That's why it's important. And again, that's where the Kronos group comes in. Shameless plug right there. But you just want to get yourself around people who know how this works and have a sense of how to work within it, or get around it, not illegally, obviously, but nothing is as it seems. Everything is always an interpretation, and it can seem onerous. It just is. But at the same time, if you're willing to put in the work and get it done, you can make it happen. I mean, there are things you can do. And again, in particular, if you can move to easier states like down here, where it's easier to set up a business and easier to get operating than it is in some other parts of the world, less onerous regulations and things of that nature. But knowledge is power, like anything else. And you just want to have as much knowledge as you can.
Yeah. And that perspective, help you see things from a different area, because it's really easy as an entrepreneur going down that line to get blind spots. You work in a certain way, just like we see the government. We just think they're always there. The masses do. There's few people that have understood how it really works and can help navigate those channels once you realize that's the way it's working. But for the most part, it is. And you can tell when you help people understand it, and you can point to examples, see this is causing this, see how this got harder, see how this got more expensive. And you start to realize that. And the same thing can happen in business, where it's like, no, it's just always been this problem. There's always been this expense, or it's always been this roadblock where I haven't been able to do what I want to do. But somebody that's broken through that or seen behind the curtain, to use that analogy again, can help you really understand that, no, there's a different way. Come over here for a second. Come over here for a second. Look over here. This is what we can do. This is what we can do to expand the business. This we can do to grow. This is what we could do to buy the property your business on, hire employees, get more equipment, whatever it may be. Just to, even in the school community, just like this is what it looks like to even start a business. This is what you'd have to think about ahead, or get told like, yeah, you can own the business, but you've got a couple, 3 years, you need to get a little experience under your belt. Because right now, any money you'd put into it, you'd just be gone. So even that value.
This is why, as an entrepreneur, the best way to hedge against all of this government overreach, even though it's that much more complicated, is as an entrepreneur, because it gives you options to not have to have the impact that those taxes have on you. It gives you options, right, to offset income and through expensing and things of that nature. So there are, again, this is where there are games to be played, legal games to be played, that when you understand how money works, which most people do not understand how money works, there is a lot of value to jumping out there and giving it a shot. I'm just saying they don't make it any easier trying to do that.
And I think a lot of it comes from most people that start businesses were just kind of middle-class people that had that paycheck mentality, the taxes mentality, and then they go into their business. They have an idea, they have a service they can do or a product they want to develop, and they go in there. But the problem is they bring that middle-class mentality in there. And a lot of them, they're successful at a scale. They're growing something, they're making some money at it, but they don't have that perspective, to your point earlier that you said about how money really works. So getting in there and getting around other people that understand, that have gone beyond you you could figure out if you want to take the next 5, 10, 15 years to do it, or you could take the next, 3 to 6 months to have people help show you how to shortcut that, save you a lot of time, save you a lot of heartache, and save you a lot of money.
Yep. Boom. That's a great, Maddie, what do you think? Great way to end it?
I think that's a great way to end it, but Steve has been working on his outro, so actually I'll let him do that outro.
All right. Here we are. That's a wrap on today's episode. If you're listening to this and you're wondering how to bridge that gap between insight and action, then you need to be in the Forge. It's our school ecosystem. It's a community of achievers focused on optimizing business, health, and high-performance living. Now, for the founders listening, who are doing $1 million or more a year, you need to know that your biggest bottleneck isn't just more hard work. It's a lack of that outside perspective. That's exactly why we built the Kronos peer advisory cohorts. We bring you into the trenches with other founders to pressure test your strategy so that you can stop making those $100,000 mistakes in a vacuum. So check out the links below, join the Forge, or book a discovery call for our next cohort. We'll see you on the inside. And remember, opportunities are everywhere. You got to go get them.
Bam.